That 357 Magnum's a good weapon, but I've seen 38s careen off windshields. No good in a city like this.
Welcome to Should You Watch This with the Popcorn Priest, a weekly podcast where movie enthusiasts, ex-movie theater projectionists, new and old friends, and many others take the time to talk about a movie that we just watched and answer that very question, should or shouldn't you watch this? I'm your host, Chris Compton. Let's get into our review and breakdown of The Enforcer from 1976.
San Francisco. Sprawling, picturesque, dynamic. 8th largest cosmopolitan city in the United States. Like every big city, it has its share of crime and violence.
God! Don't let him kill me!
We want the car right now!
San Francisco is the only city with a cop like Dirty Harry.
What are you going to do?
Give him one.
Clint Eastwood is the Enforcer.
Joining me today's recurring guest, Cole and Taylor, longtime friends and movie enthusiasts who both worked with me when I worked as a projectionist at the movie theater years ago. Happy having them on this week's breakdown of The Enforcer from 1976. The description for this one is San Francisco Inspector Dirty Harry Callahan must foil a terrorist organization made up of disgruntled Vietnam veterans. But this time, he's teamed with female partner Inspector Kate Moore, with whom he's not too excited to be working. Directed by James Fargo, top billed stars are Clint Eastwood, Tyne Daly, Harry Guardino. Runtime of 1 hour and 36 minutes, rated R. Genre on Rotten Tomatoes says action, mystery, and thriller. Although IMDb says action, crime, thriller. They flipped the crime with mystery. Thanks, IMDb. Speaking of IMDb, they give it a rating of 6.8 out of 10 from 41,000 reviews. Rotten Tomatoes gives us a 68% from 34 critic ratings and 59% from the rest of us. On a $9 million budget, this one made a worldwide box office haul of $46 million, which this was the 9th largest grossing movie of 1976. Where to watch this one? Unfortunately, you're going to have to rent or buy this one because no one's streaming this gem right now. But before you do that, let's get into the hottest, most talked about segment in podcasting. Should or shouldn't you watch this? 5 reasons why you should watch this. Number 1, if you've watched any of the previous Dirty Harry movies, this is for you. Number 2, if you're a fan of Clint Eastwood, this is for you. Number 3, if you want to see an amazing cross-section of the late 70s, this is for you. Number 4, if you want to see some unintentional, hilarious dialogue that most likely would not be allowed nowadays, this is for you. And number 5, last but not least, if you want to see Dirty Harry fall from the sky, interrupting a 70s porn shoot while chasing a perp. Get ready to live. The popcorn trivia for this one, as with other movies in the Dirty Harry film franchise, Callahan makes use of a repeated catchphrase. In Dirty Harry 1971, there was, "Do you feel lucky?" speech. In Magnum Force 1973, there was, "A man's gotta know his limitations." In Sudden Impact, 1983, there was, "Go ahead, make my day." And in the Deadpool, 1988, there was, "You're shit out of luck." In this movie, Callahan repeats the phrase, "You can count on that," twice, and the word, "marvelous," 4 times. Sarcastically, no less. But this one's awesome. After Pauline Kael gave a bad review of this movie, Clint Eastwood asked a psychiatrist to do an analysis of her from her reviews of his past work, which he had memorized verbatim. It concluded that Kael was actually physically attracted to Clint, and because she couldn't have him, she hated him. Therefore, it was some sort of vengeance, according to Clint. Nice one, Clint. This is the first movie in which a character played by Clint Eastwood uses the F word. So there's a first. Tyne Daly's well-received performance in this movie led her to being cast in Cagney and Lacey in 1981. The original script was titled Moving Target, and onward to the working original title Dirty Harry 3, before officially being called The Enforcer. Body count for this one is 19, plus one man was shot in the groin. The technical term is groinal shooting. Popcorn beefs. You know what? No beefs for this one. This was good in 1976 and arguably even better watching it today. Find out why in this week's breakdown of The Enforcer. Welcome back to Should You Watch This with the Popcorn Priest. And I've got today with me Cole. Don't have Taylor with us today. So, oh well, but I'm glad to have Cole with us. Hello, Cole.
Hi, buddy.
There we go. So we screened. This is the first time we've done this. This is a remote recording through the hosting provider that we're using, Anchor FM. We each did some homework. We watched the movie separately, and now we're coming together to do review. Unfortunately, Taylor was kind of a big baby about just watching it. So the movie we watched was The Enforcer from 1976. San Francisco Inspector Dirty Harry Callahan must foil a terrorist organization made up of disgruntled Vietnam veterans. But this time, he's teamed with female partner Inspector Kate Moore, with whom he's not too excited to be working.
Tells you all you need to know about the movie right there.
Yeah, that's the IMDb description.
I have to work with a woman? You've got to be kidding me.
It's so funny. Like, this is the third movie in this. I think there's 5 movies in the series. And this is the last of the 5 that actually had a good Rotten Tomatoes score. So,
the funny thing is the fourth one is Clint Eastwood wound up directing, and he was dating, I can't remember her name, it was his girlfriend at the time. And so he kind of put her, center stage. And when you pay attention to the camera angles in that, it's kind of like Spielberg with his wife in Temple of Doom, where he kind of just threw her in there and wasn't sure what to do with her. And so you can kind of tell that it has a hard time, like the dynamic doesn't really work between Clint and the female protagonist in that film. And so and then the fifth one it's like Lethal Weapon, where Clint's age is just really starting to shine through, and he seems more like a 60-year-old man trying to bust these young punks, and it's just so over the top that you're just laughing rather than focused on the film itself.
That one, the fourth, called Sudden Impact, came out in 1983, and then the last one is called The Deadpool in 1988. The girl you were talking about.
I should know her name. She's blonde. I can't
Sandra
think of her name off the top of my head.
Sandra
That's
Locke?
the one. That's her.
Okay, Interesting. For me, like, I got this through the Netflix DVDs, which I'm probably the only one left in the country that still gets them. But really, I like the hard copy, the media, the physical media, so I can get the uncompressed audio, because the audio is really awesome. And the Blu-ray transfer was really good. And just listening to the jazz music with all the chase scenes was so awesome.
It's kind of, and that's the other funny thing. Like, I mean, the 70s, I took a film class at Weber State years ago, and it was kind of film through the ages, the beginning of film and special effects, each film through the decade, and just kind of how there was this saying, what if you were to time travel forwards or backwards, what would be the best way to figure out the current situation or what's going on? And one of the perfect mediums would be movies, because you can always kind of tell, like, what the evil bad guy, how it's represented through the years. In The Enforcer, it's the anti-establishment, sort of anti-war, I guess you'd call them hippies in this sense, or protesters. This movie, it's funny because it represents several things, like women coming into the workforce, and how the representation of people of color, or just criminals, and what they establish right off the bat, or the police commissioner.
Like African-American guy that really a pacifist, but they arrest his whole crew because he's black.
They think, because they were tailing Harry in that one scene. And then went in after him, thinking that if Harry's there, hassling them, that they've got to be guilty of something, or they've got to be harboring weapons. And so it's kind of funny, because this movie, especially, unlike Escape from Alcatraz, or I guess a couple of Bond films come to mind, it really represents the themes of the 70s spectacularly, because you go from sexism to racism to like anti-establishment to it basically checks all the boxes, and the music especially.
Even within the Vietnam veteran, like, their crew. They've got even the women prostitutes that they're.
Well, it's more
subplot, sub theme.
Oh no, that's right. You're right. They were, because the one was posing.
He had to go into the brothel to like get information on one of the ladies.
That's true. I think, and the other thing too is I think what it's trying to represent is you've got the mayor and it's City Hall and the upscale portion of San Francisco, but then I think it's trying to represent Clint Eastwood in like a positive light, like everything he's having to go through. Like he's got to go into this black barbershop to get information from his informant, but then he's got to go to a brothel with the inflatable sex doll that was hilarious. And then even during that foot chase scene where he's chasing the informant and he crashes through into that porno shoot, and it's like, oh, look at all the the seedy crime that's going on in the underbelly of San Francisco that Clint Eastwood having to go through to catch these really dangerous members of society that have military hardware. And that's the other thing too is that kills me is their villains in the film. I keep wanting to call them hippies, but for lack of a better word, I can't think of a better term, but they're
Vietnam veterans.
See, I don't think are they veterans?
Well, they're disgruntled veterans. Well, not all of them, but some of them are.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that in the description.
Because they have training with explosives and other stuff, and they know where to get the guns.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Rocket launchers and stuff.
But that's kind of what makes me laugh is they're using the military hardware to try and rid themselves of the military of trying to take down the establishment. And what's funny is the whole we're going to steal these rocket launchers, and then they have to have training on the rocket launchers, and then they only really use them in two scenes really quick, and so they kind of telegraph that in what's going to happen during the climax, which I love. But it's everything about the movie it brings back my love of 70s films in general. It makes me kind of want to watch the first two again.
They're good. The first one's way more
low key. He's just kind of.
It's more serious. It feels a lot.
It's kind of like Rambo. The first one,
it deals with the almost like it feels like that movie about the killer in San Francisco.
Oh, Zodiac.
It's kind of like that because there's this guy who's just like killing people for sport.
Well, that's what it's based on. So that's because if you watch the actual movie Zodiac that's got Jake Gyllenhaal, there's a scene in that film where they're all in the theater watching the first Dirty Harry movie, and they're talking about how the criminal was sending in coded messages and signals. Yeah. And so they walk out of the auditorium, and Jake Gyllenhaal's talking to Mark Ruffalo, and Jake says, you're going to catch him. And Mark says, how? They're already making movies about him. And so that was because everybody was so terrified that Warner Brothers kind of capitalized on it. But the end of the first Dirty Harry, or if you read any, like the history of when they were making the first movie, it was supposed to be way more violent, and they wanted to kind of go way harder, but because of
Rambo?
No, not Rambo. The AAMP, like the rating system, and basically what morally they couldn't show on the screen, in terms of what their ratings were at the time. Thank you, MPAA. Thank you. That's what I was trying to think of. They had to dial a lot of it back. That whole movie was supposed to be about Harry kind of losing faith in the system and not believing in justice. And so that's kind of what's translated into this third film with the hostage situation at the beginning, where he's just kind of fed up with the justice system in general, where he just drives his car right into the building just to take out the hostage takers because he's tired of playing nice and kind of like pussyfooting around.
He's the worst cop. He's the worst cop.
Taylor's joined us.
Like the whole thing. Like when he was like supposed to help that guy who they thought was having a heart attack, you're like, this man can't do anything but shoot people.
But then you realize that he knows the area so well that he knew this guy, and he's like, you know what, I'm not gonna let him get away with this. Although the bystanders didn't know that, but that made the scene all the more humorous.
In theory, like he would have worked his way up to being like a detective. So like he would have been a beat cop at some point, and it's just impossible to imagine that. He just does not care.
But
he always seems put out whenever he has to like follow any kind of rule.
Yeah, like the whole like relationship with like the like junior cop that he's with. It's like he like takes a shine to her when she's like, even though you're suspended, I'll break the rules to help you. And he's like, hey, you're all right.
But at the same time, though, that's the whole point. Is he's kind of burnt, like he's pissed off because he's getting pared down in personnel, because he was already burned out as it was. So now he's got to go down to personnel and deal with all these newbies that are so green that, he doesn't want them to get killed, but he doesn't want to be there at the same time. So that's why he's trying to give Time Daly a hard time in her interview to see if she's actually worth going out there and risking her life for it. And so she saw that he did that for her to kind of push her, and she rose to the occasion. So now she's going to do that for him. Chief Inspector is trying to screw him over and take the credit by framing those innocent black men that were just trying to run a barbershop.
Yeah, the whole attitude towards policing in that movie is so funny. It's like the one like cop wife is like, it's a war. He's like, yeah.
But that's the funny.
Like, it's come on, man.
But I mean, compared to the time, it was relatively mild because that was 76, whereas 5 or 6 years later, you've got Lethal Weapon that kind of blew everything away because of it really ratcheted things up a notch in terms of how it portrayed cops and like law enforcement and things like that, where Mel Gibson's just going in blowing everybody away.
Well, that's what Clint Eastwood does. He just kind of like provokes people so you shoot them. Like
that is true.
Like the best bit at the end of that movie is what the helicopter.
No, don't give it away. Don't give it away.
I'm just saying, this is the best bit.
It is.
It's pretty awesome.
So it kills me about it, like besides the music, which is just great, especially like
it's so great.
I mean, it tries to make it suspenseful, but it's not at all. It's so relaxed. Yes, it's so relaxing. It's like so awesome. It's like you're in a nightclub and you're just kind of you're watching this hippie girl hold a big old revolver on this bridge operator, and you're thinking this should be tense, and it's just you're hearing this smooth jazz as they're taking this drive down the road. But the thing that kills me is compared to like today's standards, when you watch that show and everyone gets shot and you can just see the red paint kind of like trying not to peel off their shirts when they're rolling around or when they're falling down the hill. I'm just waiting for it to flake off and then reveal that there's no bullet hole behind it on them.
So I have a question about the movie. Did they at any point in any way try to give a motivation for the bad guy group? It just seemed like he was crazy and liked violence. No,
because that's what I was telling Chris earlier.
It's such an absurd it's
a really weird.
It's like the Cobra axe gang. It's just
but see, the funny thing is they because there was that scene with the radio station where they say we've taped a list of demands outside in this phone booth, and then they run off.
It's just about money, like it just.
Well, no, but then they didn't. But then they never explored that. Like that was never shown. All it was we want $2 million for the mayor, and so. I never recall what they were going to do with that $2 million. If they got it, it was more just a ransom plot that they never really expanded upon.
They never explained. It was like it kind of reminded me of The Rock, like where he's like a former soldier who's all crazy, and then they are on Alcatraz. But yeah, they just didn't. It seemed like they're the criminal bogeyman. Like they're criminals because they're evil and they're murdering this guy who's about to retire. And
well, I mean that's what they were trying to get across was the anti-war establishment trying to fight back against law and order, but other than kidnapping the mayor and holding him for ransom, they didn't really expound upon it any further. But I mean, it's an hour and a half runtime, and a lot of it's just watching Clint Eastwood eat ice cream in the park, waiting for his contact to show up, while he looks cool with his sunglasses.
It's like that scene where he was running. I thought was so funny because he just looks like the most person who would never do anything other than walk slowly and cool and being all cool.
Oh, I know.
So him running, you're like, oh, come on.
Well, the part that got me is I love how, I mean, it's the film's just supposed to portray the negative, the negative stigma of police back then and the free speech versus the law and order. But when he's chasing that black guy after the police station bombing and he tackles him in the church and he's got his gun out, but the priest is demanding he see some ID immediately rather than, let that suspect go. I need to see a badge right now. And then he's got to give him a speech about how he's a disgrace and how this is unacceptable and blah, blah, blah. And then, rather than handcuff this guy and then worry about identification and letting him know who he is afterwards, they've got to interrupt the scene right there. It just kind of made me chuckle.
I found the whole movie very hilarious. I don't know, if it was made with that sense of humor, or if it's just kind of modern sensibilities looking at it. My
guess is, I mean, given that it was the 70s, my guess would be it was just some contract writer that put something together because there's so many plot holes.
There's 5 writers. There was a story and a screen story.
Oh, you're right. There was 3 screen story, then there was a screenplay. You're right. Well, the part that got me was
it's only an hour and a half. It's not a long movie. Was Chris the one saying it kind of felt like a TV episode? That was kind of what I thought it was. It's like it just felt like a police procedural.
the files from Police Squad,
but yeah,
more serious.
like way more violent.
Well, what the part that I missed it because I know the priest had a secret of his own, but what was the deal with the nun? Because I remember the nun
part of it, and it gave someone for the other actress to take down. I don't know.
Okay, I thought I missed something, but I watched that scene again.
That's kind of like my biggest is like you could have like the black VF like Veterans Association barbershop thing. Like they had like you can like fill in the blank as to what the grievance is. You really can't with these hippie guys. Like you don't know why they're doing this. They never explain it. You just get a bunch of
that's kind of,
and it's just like there's psychos out there. There's sickos. We gotta get all the sickos.
Like sacrifices have to be made, and you're like, why? Like, what sacrifices are you talking about? Like what is what's your horse in this race?
I just think it's really funny.
That
no attempt is made other than he's crazy, but like if he's that crazy and unstable, like why does he have other like people with him? Like what he does to that one that hippie woman that gets shot. But that was probably one of the biggest laughs in the movie for me.
But that's the same thing too, though. They like all the subplots or like all the exposition, like you're just kind of supposed to assume. Like they rush through the whole church. They only show the black barbershop militants, twice. And the guy the second time just has that conversation with Clint in the park, and then the rest of it was. But I guess it's
like
mainly
only
supposed
an
to
hour
focus
and a half
on.
long. It's I don't know, like by modern standards, it's strange that it's not more convoluted, not more complicated.
But the scenes are really drawn out too. I mean, like the whole hostage situation at the beginning. He's got to talk with his partner about how his partner wants to get home for dinner with his wife, and then he's got to slowly walk in there, and then they've got to like get in his face, and then
the character the partner at the beginning is very funny. Like just
the takes are so long compared to today. Like it lets it take its time. Like it's trying to suck you in with atmosphere, but compared to today where they throw details at you so you don't have to solve the puzzle.
I thought it was well paced. Like I wasn't bored or anything. Like it moved at a like decent enough clip.
It had a good pace.
It's like there a fair amount happens in it, but
it's good pace, but at the same time you're kind of left, filling in some blanks, so you're left with some plot holes at the end of it. You're kind of like scratching your head like once you think about the plot of it, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, like the lack of motivation for the villains, I think, is one of the funniest things. This is why we have to have podcasts together so that we can answer each other's questions, because we're always sometimes we're confused. The answer to mine, which was why were they doing this other than money, which is I don't know.
They just hate the mayor. He's probably a Republican. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, the whole angle of like trying to like get good PR by having that woman cop get all the credit for things that it feels of its era for sure. It's kind of like a reactionary movie.
It totally is. It's the 70s to a T. It's racism and sexism.
The first one's
anti-establishment.
Pretty reasonary too. Like I haven't seen any of the others besides just the first and this one now. But as far as like
the second one's good.
It's like darn bureaucrats and rules preventing our good cops from catching all the sickos.
They're still mad that Nixon got booted out unfair because he just tried to rig an election 4 years later.
I was imagining like Nixon watching this, just cheering.
Yeah, you get them, hippies. You tell those long-haired punks.
Darn hippies. Chris, what did you think of the movie? You remember it? You watched it way before us. Chris is gone.
Oh, we've lost our fearless leader. All right, let's just do more Nixon impersonation until we get Chris back to fill the time for the dead air. I wonder if we're even recording still if Chris is gone.
It's funny if in the final recording it's just him talking and it just
we cut out altogether.
Like it's all together. All the feeds are there and it's just us not acknowledging other people.
Can you hear me? That was weird. I could hear everybody, but apparently you guys couldn't hear what I was saying. Maybe that's why when I was talking, no one was responding to me. So.
Yeah, I know. It's like we were saying that. It's probably going to sound really funny. Like we're just a bunch of like narcissists talking to hear ourselves.
Well, I'm so glad he's gone. So now I can listen to my own voice for once.
I'm just going to give my opinions.
Well, to answer your question before I couldn't respond, my review is I agree. I think it's not supposed to be that funny.
I think it's just funny by looking back on it. If
the target audience and the style of time, it was definitely supposed to be, a serious, procedural cop drama with like action and suspense and everything like that.
You're supposed to be like emotionally invested and hate these hippies.
Yeah, you don't want to see him kill the innocent mayor who's just trying to police the city, and the evil police chief.
I thought the elderly security guard was like the audience surrogate. Like these darn sickos ruining America.
To finish my review, I think it was fun to watch a movie in the 70s on a Blu-ray. It felt really, the transfer was really good. It was funnier than it should have been, but it was highly enjoyable. I wouldn't go watch this again, but watching the first two and now seeing this, the third one, these are by far the best Dirty Harry movies. I haven't seen the last two, but
considering some of the stuff Eastwood did in the 70s and 80s, this is definitely one of the better on par films as opposed to.
How old is he in this movie?
He's going to be 90 this year.
Yeah, no, well, he didn't get like famous till he was 30, so I'm like thinking he's like 45 in this, but I don't know.
1910, 66? No, 1930. So he was 46 in that movie.
Okay, that sounds right.
I don't know about the next two movies, but the first three are awesome and are fun to watch. And we were talking about this before you joined, Taylor, that it's a reflection of the time. And there's so many points that they're trying to touch on that it's really kind of funny.
Yeah, it reminded me of like Death Wish, but like in like that one's probably darker than these are, like as far as
yeah.
But like similar reactionary, like darn sickos.
Dirty Harry's more trusting in law enforcement to kind of get the job done against lawlessness, whereas Death Wish, by that point, it's
law
like
has failed.
Vigilante justice.
Yeah, the stigma of the 80s was that the law doesn't really help you or doesn't really protect you, and so you take justice in your own hands to get any results.
Yeah. Well, I'd give it a large bucket. Not a golden bucket, but a large bucket. I think it's awesome. The jazz music makes the chase scenes super awesome. But what about you guys? What's your rating?
It's not a must see, but I mean it's certainly fun. Like it's the kind of show that if you caught on like TV or something, you'd leave it on. You're like,
yeah.
The first one you definitely should see, but then it's kind of, if you like the first one, you'll like the second and third. It'll keep you entertained, but it's not recommended viewing. You're not going to be missing anything if you don't watch it.
If you want to hang out with Clint Eastwood, here's an hour and a half. You can hang out with Clint Eastwood, and I'm always down for that.
Yes. And the scene with him dealing with the rookie cops or like trying to make detective is so great. It's so funny. It's just him like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah, no.
Well, no, and so that's the great representation in that scene too, though.
Like just disgust at like what's happened to his neighborhood kind of deal.
Yeah.
Well, but at the same time, though, that interview scene is great because the female they have there from the mayor's office is like the worst representation of like somebody you can get, where they get this older lady with gray hair that's kind of, they wanted to find like the most out of touch character in terms of the way Clint Eastwood sees the department. And so, make it easier for them to kind of quabble with each other right off the bat. And it was like a high school secretary that somehow found her way into the wrong interrogation room and decided to piss off Clint Eastwood about his decisions.
and then they juxtapose it with that Inspector Kate Moore. Her responses were really good, and so it was a really great scene. But anyway, what do you guys? What's your final take before we end the podcast?
I'd give it 3 out of 4 because there's some plot holes, and I don't know why they tried to make Clint Eastwood look inconspicuous in that baseball hat in the brothel, because that hat did not fit on his head at all, and I kept waiting for it to fall off.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But the brothel scene, man, this movie's got some fun stuff in it. Like the chase scene where they fall into the porno shoot.
Yeah, you never know where it's going to go.
I did not expect that.
That was a lot of buttocks.
Just society's going to hell, man. Bunch of sickos.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, Taylor?
That
was right around the time of Deep Throat.
What about you, Taylor? What's your rating?
Some stars for sure. Like, it's fun.
That's not a rating.
That is my rating. That's the middle rating.
like, well,
0 stars, some
I found
stars,
some
billion, trillion stars. This isn't
we have the worst
billion,
rating.
trillion stars, but it's some stars. It's fun.
We have the worst rating system
Yeah,
ever.
no, it's not good.
It's
We
fine.
should do the on cinema ones. Just give it like popcorn and sodas.
We've been doing it for 5 years. You think you'd have a better rating system at this point after like 45?
Well,
They're like, nope, not. It's confusing, but I'm not changing my ways.
Yeah, no, I don't. Much like Clint Eastwood, I don't like change.
As an old white Republican, I abhor things that are different.
Yeah, and Dirty Harry, he also hates change.
Loose change.
Well, that was a great take, and I appreciate you guys' willingness to jump on this.
Yeah, you gave us homework. I'm still pissed. You just crap on my own time.
Yeah, sorry about that. This is what we got to do in these trying times.
Yeah, these trying times. This moment in history.
Mr. First World Problems.
No, well, this is the entire world.
We'll see you guys on the next one.
As always, hit me up on the Twitters or the Instas if you want to interact with the great Popcorn Priest at Popcorn Priest. I respond to every tweet, post, comment, hashtag, and whatever else there is. Let us know if there's something you'd like us to review. Also, if you enjoyed this or any of our previous episodes, please subscribe so you can get notifications on our newest episodes. Also, share it with one of your movie lover friends. Much appreciated. Next week, if you want to be ready for our newest breakdown, we'll be reviewing From Beijing with Love from 1994. Guaranteed you haven't seen anything like this one. As always, thanks for listening. This has been Should You Watch This with the Popcorn Priest. And for Cole and Taylor, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Well, I just like Taylor's surprise entrance where all of a sudden he just starts talking. That's the way we should do it.
Yeah, it's really funny. Yeah, this will be a good episode.
Where I just came in saying he was the worst cop. He is. He's a terrible policeman.
Yeah.
I can't believe he would ever actually be able to hold down that job without also just being sent to jail by internal affairs.
Well, that's why he got put in personnel, because he wrecked that liquor store.
Yeah, you've killed some people and aggressively and needlessly. So we're just gonna pump you down to desk work until things blow over.
Yeah,
you're just too good of a homicide detective.
I like how that guy. He's like, I was in personnel.
I was there for 10 years.
It's for assholes.